What does life look like when you're fully surrendered to God? It's a simple question, but what does it really mean to surrender every aspect of your life to Him? My name is Joseph Yang, and on this podcast, we'll explore what it means to follow Christ wholeheartedly in every area of life. Through conversations with believers from different walks of life, we'll hear their stories, their struggles, and the lessons they've learned along the way. So whether you're wrestling with God's calling, seeking direction, or simply wanting to grow deeper in your faith, I invite you to join me on the journey. Welcome to the Fully Surrendered Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of the Fully Surrendered Podcast. I hope you're having a great morning so far, whether you're driving into work, working on house chores, or just taking some time to rest. I'm glad you've decided to tune in with us this morning. And I know I say this every episode, but I have a very special guest. And maybe I say I'm at a very special location, since that isn't something I say every episode. But I'm at a very special location. I'm here with the Mayor of Chandler, interviewing him about his faith and about his story a little bit, especially being the mayor, the executive of a city, and what that journey has looked like for him, especially since the mayor of a city being also a pastor is really interesting. And I always had a running joke where I would call him Mr. Pastor Mayor, because some people would say Mr. Mayor, some people call him Pastor, and so I always make a joke and say I'm going to call him Mr. Pastor Mayor. And but with that said, I've got Mr. Pastor Mayor Hartke with us today. Mayor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's a little warm for my liking, but then again, we're in Arizona, so I don't know why I'm surprised every day I get in my car. But so being a pastor and a mayor, obviously, could you tell us a little bit about, I guess, what your who you are, what you currently do? I mentioned that you're the mayor, but if you want to just give our listeners a little bit of a snippet on who you are, what you do.
Sure. I'll start with a bit of free advice. In Arizona, don't wear shorts on hot vinyl seats. There you go. Ponder that one. So what do I do? As mayor, I lead the council to lead the city. So that means meetings, that means key staff. I do not run the city. We have people that do that, but we hold the key employees accountable, provide a path of our goals and directions, a strategic plan, and work with them to accomplish it.
And talk about a little about how you're, actually, we're going to get into that, but I guess to start also, so now that we know a little bit about what you do, can you talk to our listeners a little bit about, I guess, your upbringing and your faith? Have you always been Christian? Have you grown up in a Christian household? What did your journey of faith look like that brought you to the path of being a pastor?
Unusual, of course, and it's unique. I grew up as a German-Irish Catholic in the Midwest town of St. Louis. I had a very nominal faith. It was a very community faith. My grandparents were Catholics, so therefore I was. When I was 20, I was looking for faith, looking for God. I was in a fraternity in college, and someone started a Bible study, and I went. It didn't go well because I asked a bunch of weird, odd questions. They didn't know what to do with me. I went back another night, and out of the blue, I heard this voice that said, "Kevin, this is what you're looking for." No one was around me. It was an audible voice. I did not know what to do with that. I was shaking. I asked the leader of the group. I explained to him what happened. He handed me a tract. I went back to my room and prayed a little prayer in the tract, and my life changed. That's been the defining point of my life.
Wow. And then from there, you decided to go to school to become a pastor.
No, I decided I've got a degree in biochemistry, and I was heading to med school. And when I was working on a hospital medical trip, I did several of these because I also worked in hospitals in hematology and chemistry labs. So I did a lot of lab work, which is consistent with biochemistry. They needed a medical technician So to do far more than I did was blood typing, very primitive diagnosis of tuberculosis and other things. And when I was on this, I diagnosed a woman with tuberculosis, and a few hours later, she died.
Wow.
She had children. She was about my age, 20, 21. And I was a footloose, free college student, and I just felt that was wrong. And I had no people responsible to me, and she had a family that lost her. And I didn't sleep that night on this mountaintop of where we set up this clinic. But one thing that came out of that was I decided that I would serve God all the rest of my life. And that was a pivotal point that led me to get involved after I graduated and waited on med school with the mission organization, that I decided I would stay that direction and not proceed with med school. Served at the mission group for 5 years, working with Indigenous Cree, Ojibwe, and Chipewyan in northern Canada, and came down here to pastor a church, a staff pastor, which then I picked up a master's in theology through Fuller Theological while I was here.
Wow. I'm very riveted now with this story, because I've always just known you as Mayor Hartke. You're just the mayor. And that's really cool that we almost had Pastor Mayor Hartke.
Oh, it has another surname on there. Sure.
Yes. Okay, so that's really cool that you kind of changed directions and paths. I really like hearing that, because the title of the podcast is the Fully Surrendered Podcast. And I talk about being fully surrendered and what that looks like, and if that's even attainable, being completely surrendered to God. And talking about that, I guess I'm curious where you went from being a pastor to then becoming the mayor. Is that something that you felt as a calling? Is that something that you felt led to do?
Sometimes I think our calling is defined by, we see a need and we feel compelled, led to respond to that. So I was just about the time that I became the senior pastor. I was an associate pastor for 7 years at the church, and our lead pastor decided to move to China. He was working with English language as a second language, ELIC, English language in China. And about that time, there was a boy that was murdered on the sidewalk of our church. He was riding his bike early in the morning to go to work, and a gang group needed to kill somebody for this induction. This is back in the 90s, where our neighborhoods were a little rougher. And I really felt that I needed to take my leadership outside the walls of the church and get involved in the community more. First time I went to a council meeting, I remember bringing that up and pounding on the day saying, we can do better. Chandler has done better. We're now one of the safest cities in the entire nation, and we're not known, although we still get tagged by graffiti, but we're just not known as a city plagued by gangs or by graffiti, because we take care of it. But that event led me to, the first thing I did was pick up trash on a cleanup day, which led me to introduce myself to the mayor at that time, to council members, to city managers and leaders, and ask how I could pray for them. That led to me being asked to serve on boards and commissions, and I did that. And when an opening arose to put my name in to fulfill the term of a council member who was called up for active duty, I put my name in, and I was appointed, which led to being elected, and led to me being elected to mayor. A funny point on that was the first time I ran for council, I lost. And had I won, I wouldn't be mayor today, because I was on a different cycle. And so if everything had gone the way that I had wanted it to go, I wouldn't have spent so much time running, organizing a campaign to be unsuccessful. But that led me to start my nonprofit for our city, Chandler, to be appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which, though I had served previous ones, I hadn't, and to just be better prepared to serve when I finally was elected.
Okay. And after getting elected as the mayor, how has your faith in being a pastor shaped how you govern and how you do things in the city? Obviously, there's tons of mayors across the entire country, but obviously, not all of them may be Christian, and not all of them may be pastors. And how does that shape what you do?
I think it definitely shapes what I do. I pray for the city with a different vantage point rather than a pastor who's looking at issues as opposed to a mayor who is in the center of issues. It gives me better prayer and better connection points of what to pray for. I have a full sense of, as a pastor, of leadership and accountability. But as a mayor, if you're not willing to let every word you say and every action be that as accountable, I think ministry prepares you. Certainly public speaking, and certainly having a strong empathy for constituents and people who just have everyday problems. And I think I've carried all of those with me into being mayor.
I like that. And yeah, I'm sure having the set of values that we're called to have as Christians definitely helps being the mayor, right? Being joyful for those when they're joyful and hurting when others are hurting, and being able to be a more empathetic mayor. But regarding your faith, if somebody wants to obviously maybe not take on the calling of running for office or, taking on those higher positions, is there a way that you've seen as the mayor and a pastor that people can pray for their city at large? Is there any way that people can, intercede in that way for their leaders?
Sure. And I'll even take it further. You don't need a title to make a difference. And being an elected is not the end all. And there are a lot of people without titles that do incredible things every day. I started a homeless initiative after I became mayor, but the reason it's successful is that there are hundreds of people that make this thing work. And we've literally helped thousands of people who were homeless on the streets of Chandler find a better life. So you don't need a title. And when I started my nonprofit for our City of Chandler, my whole goal was to combine business and faith and government and nonprofits to see how can we work together to solve problems. So we collaborate well. But I think there are certainly groups that help prayer. I've invited groups to come in and pray in my office and others. I certainly, to me, when someone is giving an invocation at the beginning of a city council meeting, I take it as literally inviting the presence of God into this meeting rather than just a sacerdotal function that you begin meetings with prayer. And I make a point of thanking every pastor that does pray, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful when groups ask me, how can they pray for the city? And I always respond to those because I believe that prayer works, and it's perhaps unseen, but to solicit the King of Kings and Lord of Lords with our requests and needs is what the Bible tells us to do. Let your request be known to God. And I believe that I try to make that happen for as many groups as possible and individuals.
Right. I really like that. And I do like that a lot of meetings start with invocations here, the state capitol. A lot of our meetings start with intercession, which I think is very healthy for the leaders. And obviously being a leader of a city, and Chandler is definitely no small city with residency of almost 299,000 people. Does it ever, I don't want to say burden as in a bad way, but obviously with that many people, with that plethora of jobs that I don't want to say are on your shoulders, but are looking to you to be a strong pillar of leadership. And obviously everybody has some varying level of weight that they're carrying for the kingdom. And with that kind of weight on your shoulders, so to say, how do you, I don't want to say deal with that because that doesn't sound like the right phrasing for it, but
no, that is a good phrase.
How do you work through that? And does it ever become, is it a heavy responsibility?
It can be, but the word tells us to cast our cares on him who cares for us. And that's more than just a scripture. It's a way to live. What I notice, both when I've been a pastor and here, is that people ask me to do things that I can't do. I can pray for people as a pastor. I can provide opportunities for people as a mayor. I can hook them up, but sometimes people in churches get mad and upset at people, and they leave churches and they will blame whatever, right? I try to not take that on. Sometimes people get mad at pastors because they're mad at God, or they're mad at somebody in the church. And as mayor, it's kind of no different. Is if someone isn't getting what they want, they often will lash out, and maybe it's their neighbor's parking. They don't like, I could very recently point a fact that someone's upset that their neighbor, when they open their front doors, they see this certain colored truck and they want me to do something about it. Well, that person has a right to park that truck in front of their house. And so we often give them the direction. We explain what they can do, what they can't do. We try to connect neighbors with neighbors rather than using us as a club. So people call us up with a lot of things. I get a lot of requests, for example, from a lot of my international friends to help with their visa dilemmas. And, I tell them up front, I can't help you with this. I suggest you call your council member. So I realize whether as a pastor, whether as a mayor, I can't solve everyone's problems, but I certainly try to bring them to people who can, where I can. Or I will tell them that, no, that's just not the role of government in this case. You kind of need to work that out with your neighbor. Or I'll explain to them that something is, even though you don't like it, it's okay. And you've got to figure this out.
Right. Of course. And I lost my train of thought. I guess, yeah. So on that topic of obviously, I don't want to say burden of having so many people depending on you, but as a mayor and as a pastor, I want to talk a little bit about more. So the whole purpose of this podcast, it came to me when I was just thinking about how really easy when I, obviously when I ran for city council myself, it was very busy. It takes up a lot of time. And one of the things I realized was I was not praying as much as I should have been, and I was not practicing spiritual disciplines as I should have been. And when I went to Moody, it was very easy to be in the Word. It was very easy to pray. But then being back on summer break, it's very easy to slip out of that habit. And so I looked at the podcast because I thought, I felt God calling me to Moody, and I almost wonder if that's why, right? To get me out of the normal so I can refocus on Him. And that was the idea of the podcast. So talking about your younger years, when you talked about making that decision, what is some advice that you could have to young believers? I have a lot of Moody students that listen to this, some college students that you can give them advice in as they're trying to navigate life, they're trying to navigate school, they're trying to navigate whatever it may be. Do you have any advice or anything that you can share from your own young adult experience?
Yeah. Most times, maybe 99 times out of 100, when the Bible talks about a church, it talks about a community. We are part of it, but it really is the sense of koinonia, meaning a community, or ecclesia, called out ones. And I think it's important that to live our lives of faith well, we need to do it with others. And that can get difficult in America in particular, where rugged individualism still resides, where we try to do this on our own, where to tell our story or to have people know us, we still all face the quiet whisperer and the finger pointer who wants to bring shame upon us. So I think it's important to not try to live our faith alone. Live it with people. Have people that know us and can pray for us. And we can say, I'm struggling with this. And whether it's that struggle is as a young man or young woman is sexual temptation or with discouragement or negativity or thoughts of suicide, whatever it might be, I think the number one antidote is live lives together. The enemy of our souls will try at the same time to say, if you tell people this, they won't like you. So live behind a mask. Don't let people know who you are. But if that's who we live, then we will sustain a mask and not draw close to God and wonder why we are feeling discouraged. So live our lives together. That will help stay in the Word. That will help by having people pray for us. That will help by keeping us even accountable to not forsake worshiping with others as well. So be part of a community is my big word on that.
Be part of a community. I like that. And I like it especially because I think you also live that out. I think just being somebody from the outside watching your tenure as mayor, you are somebody that very much loves community. You love the Chandler community. I know one of your babies for our city, Chandler, is probably one of my favorite things that the City of Chandler does.
Me too.
Because it like you said, it brings out the community in a way that people don't really expect. I like that. So for listeners that don't know, For Our City Day is basically a program that actually, since you started it, would you like to tell our listeners what For Our City Day is?
Yeah. So, let me back up one other thing. Is that one of the ways I live it out is I've been in a Bible study with a group of guys for over 3 decades. We meet once a week. Not everyone's there every week, but we still meet. And again, it provides that touch point of people that know me and that I know them. And even now, as some of them are getting older, that have health problems, I'm there for them and they're there for me. So I think it's important. Now, back For Our City is a nonprofit that I started, and we do a bunch of cool things. We initiated a homeless initiative, I Help, that is thriving and helping lots of people. We do a For Our City Day that you brought up, which we rally over 1,000 volunteers annually and work with the City of Chandler to identify a neighborhood that really could use some love. And that love might be in the form of painting houses or of helping with front yards, of trying to meet needs of the residents, to give them a sense of pride that they might need to help keep their neighborhood up. We hand out, I think this year, over 2,500, 3,000 backpacks that are fully stuffed to any kid in Chandler that wanted one. And always a cool day to help kids start school right. And we did this in a way that we brought together people that were already doing it, but didn't know others were doing it. So I could imagine a kid that maybe figured out how to get 10 backpacks. So we've helped organizations go deeper and wider in their distribution and helping meet needs in Chandler. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, and I love that because, again, it goes back to, I think it's one thing to be able to go around and say that you know Christ, but are we living like Christ? Are we living fully surrendered? And if we are, then we should be as instruments as Christ is, just like he would go out and help those that were marginalized, those that were least, lost, and lonely. And I really like just seeing those sort of efforts. And with that, out of just pure curiosity, is there, as a pastor, is there a favorite Bible story, Bible section that you just really enjoy, that you have always enjoyed?
Yes. And I've memorized quite a few passages, and whenever I can't sleep tonight because the events of the day have taken over and are waking me up and my mind is replaying them, I find myself just reciting again and again Psalm 23 because it takes my mind off of whatever's in the world and reminds me of who I am. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me by still waters. Second part, he restores my soul. And I think that is really important. But a favorite book in the Old Testament that also ties in with my community engagement is the book of Jonah. Jonah went to a city that did not love God, didn't want to preach to them because he was afraid they would repent, and he hated them as people.
Right.
And I think that's very relevant for today when people find hatred or distrust of different groups of people, whoever they might be, whatever they might have done. And God reminds him at the end, should I not care for this great city of 120,000 who don't know their left hand from their right hand? Mm. That tells me that God cares for people, but God loves cities too.
Yes, I actually love Psalms 23. That is, I have a song of somebody singing that. It's definitely one of my favorites. And Jonah is always funny just because I think that a lot of us have the heart of Jonah more than we like to realize sometimes. I know I do, especially the part where Jonah is standing there looking at the city and he's like, all right, God, do it.
Yeah.
Do the thing. Let's wipe them out. It's done. It's over. Get rid of them. And I just think that sometimes I definitely have a lot of that in me sometimes of thinking, all right, God, just do it. Just wipe them all out. But we have to remember that God looks deeper and he cares.
When scripture says God so loved the world, what part of the world doesn't God love?
Right.
And what part of the world didn't Christ go to the cross to die for? Mm-hmm. I'm not a universalist in terms of everyone is saved, right. But I do believe that Jesus died for the entire world.
Right. And I like that because like you said, yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely going to Moody. There's been a lot of different conversations and debates with that kind of stuff left and right, which has been really interesting. And honestly, I had kind of a Jonah moment myself in May of a couple years ago after the campaign myself and just being done. I was like, well, I have no idea. And then that's when God was putting education in my heart. And I was like, why would I go back to education? It's been like 4 years since I graduated school. Why would I do that? And then the next thing I know, I'm looking at schools and then I'm like, Chicago, why would I go to Chicago? And then next thing I know, I'm sitting on a plane going to Chicago. And I guess to close this out a little bit, I want to talk a little bit more about just being the mayor. Are there any, obviously your term is coming up to an end, you've termed out, and having been on council for 8 years and then being a mayor for 8 years, what's some of the greatest things and accomplishments that you're most proud of, that when you look back on your years, you're leaving the city better than the way you found it?
Yeah, I could think of a few, and I'll go back to one. Again, being a mayor does give me the power of being a convener, as well as being the chief cheerleader of all things Chandler. Mm. But in the power of convening, I was able to get nonprofits and faith communities to come together to start this homeless initiative, iHelp. I'm really proud of that because it operates probably a dime on a dollar if this was a federal program, because we don't need to build a homeless shelter. We don't need to hire a significant staff. It's run by people in churches that have passion to help homeless people. So both the fact that we can do that without expending a lot of dollars and mobilize the power of people of faith that love people is a big thing for me. Mm. A second thing, just focus, is that I've felt that I've been a fiscal hawk with Chandler. I've lowered property tax rates 11 years in a row. I really focused myself in council to pay off the unfunded police and fire public pension, which took a lot of discipline and about 7 years to get there. But we're one of the few, probably the only large city that in doing this, we've saved 11 million of city coffers to be able to go to other things and not raise taxes. Mm. Chandler has the lowest sales tax in the entire state, and we've maintained that. So the fact that we have the lowest cost of water in the entire valley. So those kind of things make me feel like living in Chandler is a good proposition. Having it being a safe city is a huge proposition. Mm. So I felt that we've been able to do things that others haven't been able to do, and do it in such a way by collaboration and focus that we provide a lot of extraordinary services in Chandler. We have a great police and fire force, and we're able to do this in such a way without having to raise taxes again and again and again to get there.
Right. And I guess a follow-up question to that would be, what's your favorite part of being the mayor. Like, for example, I think a cool thing is President Biden had a button that would bring ice cream to his desk, and then President Trump has one for Diet Coke. Is there something that you think what's your favorite part of being the mayor?
I wish I had a button. I don't have a button. I need a button. Gosh. My favorite part of being mayor, and this might seem odd, is I love when I walk through our streets, I see people happy. We have a homeless team that passionately goes after people experiencing homelessness. And this morning at ribbon cutting at Seafood City, I could have done 100 selfies with people as people just coming up, because people are happy they live in Chandler. People are happy. And because of that, they're proud of the city, and I get to share in their joy. So the fact that I humbly get to see so much going on that goes on right, and share in the joy of people that are home, that call Chandler home. We truly are the best run city in Arizona, if not the entire nation. And I take great pride, joy, pride and humility at the same time.
Yeah.
Of having a small piece to be part of that.
I think that's really cool. And so last two questions. First, just because I like exclusives and I like features, what is a little bit of a Chandler secret that you know that you enjoy? Like, is there a secret restaurant that you know of? Is there some little secret around City Hall that you just think is super cool?
I had a secret restaurant. It was this Cambodian Egyptian little thing at 415 East Chandler Boulevard, or 410. They actually got voted by the New York Times as one of the top 100 restaurants.
Wow.
This is about 5-6 years ago. Well, they didn't make it, but that was a true hole in the wall that served really incredible food. I'm a big coffee guy. I roast coffee at home, but we now have about 6 coffee roasters in Chandler. So I meet people and I bounce around to all of them to make sure that I'm sharing kind of the love. I love that downtown Chandler is become quite a gathering place. People love that it's clean, that they love that it's friendly, that it's safe. And I take great pride in my downtown.
We have a great downtown. I do really love it. And to close us out, do you have any final words of wisdom, any not last minute, but any final advice, anything that you want to share?
Yeah. I would say Matthew 28, when Jesus says, go out into all the worlds and make disciples, teaching and preaching, baptizing. I'd say we're all called to influence. We're all called to lead. I'll say again, I said earlier, you don't need a title to do that to start. You've got a title as servant of the Most High God, and that is the most important title that I own and I have over this, far more than council member or mayor or a director or president of different organizations that I've had the opportunity to lead, because that fuels the opportunity with humility to do great things. And I would leave that with all of our viewers, is that start today. Be excited about the circles that Jesus has got you in. Don't wait for something else. My first involvement of getting involved in this community was picking up trash in alleys. And I said, all right, here's an opportunity. I can do this. And I got to meet people who are alongside of me and build new friends. And so I would say, make things better today.
Yeah.
For your life, for the people around you, by serving Jesus with all of your heart, mind, and soul.
Right. I like that. One day, you never know where God could lead you. One day you're picking up trash in an alley. Next day you're sitting on the 5th floor in the mayor's office.
That's right.
Mayor. That's really cool. But Mayor, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you opening up your office as well. This has to be one of my favorite views of Chandler. I think I came up here maybe 5 years ago. Councilmember Sam Huang invited me up here, and I just remember this is one of my favorite views, just being able to see the city, mainly because being in Chicago has made me realize I'm not the biggest fan of big cities. It makes me feel very small, but I like Chandler because it just feels like a hometown. And I I know you've had a lot of part in that, and but thank you so much for your time, and I hope all of you listeners and viewers enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you can take something away and learn from our mayor and just go out and do what you can today. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time on the Fully Surrendered podcast.